Yo, what is going on? I'm Marcus, and you're at the channel of the Debt Free Dad. It's been a minute. Your boy been MIA. I've been MIA for a minute. Hey, life been lifing. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and at some point, I'm probably gonna do a video or live stream to get everybody up to speed. So, if you're new to the channel, finance attorney reactions, we just talk about things that are interesting. We sometimes I give a legal nuance, a attorney reaction to something. It just depends whatever is trending in the news or pops up on my feed, or just what y'all let me know is interesting. Always toss out a disclaimer: licensed attorney, not legal, not financial advice. I got to get that out of the way. Now we're gonna talk about something interesting today because I don't know if it's I guess it's good and bad, but we're gonna talk about gentrification. I saw an interesting story out of Tennessee related to gentrification. Now, hey, what is gentrification? Essentially, it's when a neighborhood goes through a revamp. Normally, it happens slowly over time. Like, okay, let's say the neighborhood property values just was depressed. They're like, you know what? We're gonna turn this into a up and coming neighborhood. They may fix up some of the distressed properties. They may knock down some of the distressed properties and put in apartment complexes that are higher end. They may build a development mall, a strip mall, a mall, a stadium, something in the area that'll attract business, that'll increase the property value and entice people to want to move there. So gentrification isn't all bad, especially if you have the resources to capitalize. Trust me, I'm in a neighborhood that's going through gentrification, and it's pretty amazing. Sometimes you'll see a Asian family, a black family, or white family walking their dog. Other times you may see a random stroller, a random bopper walking down the street, looking like they on Struggleville. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. There's some pros and cons. Most of the people in my neighborhood are actually homeowners. Like everybody, I say that it's only one, two, three, four, five. There's only five houses on my block, about to be six. They're building one. But most people are homeowners. You walk your dog around the neighborhood, you'll get to know everybody. But you can see with the apartment complexes, they slowly or but surely were moving people out. So this story is interesting. I'm going to play this video. We're going to watch, and there's a couple of questions I want you to think about while we watch this video. First, is this lady actually someone we should feel sorry for when gentrification occurs? If you got the resources to capitalize on gentrification, you could get in low and hold, and in 3 to 5 years, when everything pop off, your property going to shoot through the roof. But if you're someone who may not have financial resources, you may be one of the persons who get pushed out or get squeezed into some strange ass situation. If you saw the thumbnail, that was the actual picture of this lady's home in between these two new developments. It actually looks freaking ridiculous. But let's go ahead and get the video queued up so we can take a look. And I'm gonna let y'all know a legal argument that probably should or could have been made that would have gotten this lady out of this entire mess. But then again, when you have resources and you don't have resources, the only recourse you have is to complain and bitch about stuff. So let's go ahead and tune into this video and get everything queued up. We're gonna make it so we can see what's going on in this video.
City the size of Nashville, there is no shortage of new construction and homeowners dealing with new neighbors and changes to their neighborhood that are out of their control.
I want somebody to just respect me. Take me serious and just give me a little respect. If you want to use something of mine, ask me, don't take it.
Marcia Jordan has lived in the same 2-block radius her entire life. The North Nashville resident is the last one in an original home on Ireland Street. Marcia reached out to us concerned that part of the new home right next door was actually built on her property. News Channel 5's Hannah McDonald has been digging into her case. Hannah and photojournalist Catherine Stewart show us it truly is a case study of urban gentrification.
Present-day Ireland Street is worlds away from the Ireland Street where Marcia Jordan
You knew your neighbors.
put down roots.
It has changed tremendously. You could sit on the porch, drink coffee, and talk to your neighbors. Now I don't know my neighbors because they change each week.
For 3 decades, Marcia has had a front row seat to change. The gentrification has driven every neighbor elsewhere except her.
Probably about 2 years ago, that neighbor left and she sold to rise.
Okay. Hey, before I'm gonna let this video play because I really try not to interrupt the video. But there's an important note here. When gentrification happens, if you are the last person who's holding on to your property, it's a 99.9% chance you're going to be unhappy and be screwed. When there's 4 or 5 people on the block, they're trying to buy, they're trying to redevelop, you got a little power to leverage, you got power to negotiate. If everybody else abandons ship and you the last person there, it gives you no leverage to negotiate. So you're really setting yourself up to be disappointed because they either going to build around you and the shit going to look ridiculous, or they're going to make the situation so uncomfortable when they do buy you out, they can lowball you. So you're probably going to get lower than what all the other neighbors got. So, just some food for thought that, we need to be aware of. Don't be the last person to reach a negotiation because it's going to limit your ability to negotiate because you're going to lose leverage.
That's development. She left last week. She said she couldn't take it. She sold and she left.
Marcia's home sits in between 8 new builds. There used to
That picture funny as hell. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but like she probably had neighbors who had houses that were the same height, because they build houses all similar because they want the neighborhood to be consistent. Now her son is blocked off. She blocked off. She just wedged. She just wedged between these colossal units. Like, I'm just, I would have had to get out of there before that shit even came to fruition. Because a lot of times when they try to buy your property, they'll actually show you the blueprints. And damn, that's just a crazy ass image right there. She ain't got no sunlight.
Sold and she left.
Marcia's home sits in between 8 new builds. There used to be just one home on either side.
They want to give you maybe $400,000 and they build 4 and they sell them each for $850,000.
The final 4 just to her west will be listed for sale soon.
They did this.
Marcia wanted us to see damage to her fence done during construction of one of the new houses.
They told this complete up.
She also showed us a gutter on the house which touches her fence.
All right, so they wedged this lady in between a big ass house sandwich. Only had one house on each side. Those people got the hell out of Dodge and sold, which was probably smart. They built these big ass houses. Now she's just sitting in the middle looking crazy with no sunlight. And apparently these homes are on her property, touching her fence, butting up to her actual fence, which she asserts is on her property. Now, I understand her plight, and I feel I understand it from a finance standpoint, and I probably would advise somebody to get the hell out of there. But I understand it. She's been there 30 years. This isn't what she expected the neighborhood to look like. And she said they offering her $400,000. $400,000. I mean, maybe in Tennessee, certain parts is a lot to get a home, but $400,000. What interest rates are, I don't know if her house is paid for, but if she bought it 30 years ago, she probably got no note, or she probably got a very low mortgage remaining on her home. It's not easy to just sell your house and move into something that's actually affordable. She's, older Black woman, probably on a fixed income. So I definitely understand her plight and situation. But me personally, DFD wouldn't have been the last person standing there going down with the
house, which touches her fence.
It's touching. You can't. It's touching. He built a house on my fence.
A few weeks ago, she parked her car against the fence to make a point.
I never met.
All right. Now, I just had to pause it right there because did y'all see that image right there? This is how you know somebody is crazy. Like, she says the developer built the house on her property because the gutter, the back of the house is touching the fence line. To prove a point, she parked her car on the fence where it looks like she's getting damage to her car. That's crazy as hell. I mean, I'm sure it's not a Tesla, but hey, that's one key indicator that this lady is she kind of wild because I think that's kind of crazy to do. But I thought that was interesting that hey, I'm gonna park my car here just to prove a point because she says this guy is on her fence line. That's kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs in my book. But again, older woman, been there 30 years. She want what she want and she ain't gonna take no for an answer. I get it.
House on my fence.
A few weeks ago, she parked her car against the fence to make a point.
I never met Rick, the owner, until I parked my car right there.
Marcia's carport was also banged up by a construction crew and possibly this window.
He came and pulled the crane. I let him use the crane. He pulled the crane and he tore my carport and don't even want to fix it. Didn't give me one damn.
We were both surprised when the developer, Rick Wells, showed up.
I've apologized for the damage that was done to the fence, but when I was here 2 weeks ago, I agreed to fix the fence. It doesn't make sense to fix the fence until all the construction is completely done, which is something we also
So I'm gonna get my fence fixed.
Yeah,
Hey, I think that makes sense. Why fix it and construction is still going on to damage it again? So 1 point for Rick in this argument.
I'm agreeing to no other fence over there, not unless it's a foot apart.
we said
12
This exchange continued for 25 minutes.
So we're gonna move your house this back 2 feet.
no, they can't.
So how you gonna put a fence?
This fence, once we clear this out, we'll have to go.
How you gonna put another fence over here? You're
I'm
not.
not going to put a fence.
We're gonna leave this fence here. Okay.
The truth of the matter is, this is very, very rare. In our historic neighborhoods, few homeowners get the chance to negotiate.
To repair one window, and
How much I'm gonna get for that?
we agreed to $100.
No, I ain't agreed to no. I'm tired of $100. We agreed to $300.
200, and you got a deal.
250.
200.
250.
How about 200?
How about
I'm
250?
repairing your fence. I'm doing all the landscape.
I'm helping you. You gonna sell this, baby. I've been here 30 years. You owe me. I don't owe you. You coming new. I've been here 30 years. I done took your abuse all this time, and I'm tired of you. I am sick and tired of you.
As it so happens, when we went to the city to check on some things, we discovered the long-standing fence is actually on Rick's property.
She did all this complaining when she did all of this complaining, went to the news, put this guy on blast about how he built this house on her fence, parked her car and damaged her car, riding it up against the fence because he built this house on her property because it's touching her fence. Then the news went to get the land surveyed, and the fence that she complaining about that she says is her property is actually on the developer's property. Like, come on. Like, this is why you should know what you talk about. And I get it, like, hey, she just know that, hey, they built the fence here. This is my property. But you need to know what the hell you talk about before you start, making a big issue out of things. I mean, it is what it is.
We
but that's
discovered
crazy.
the long-standing fence is actually on Rick's property. This land survey shows the majority of Marcia's fence and her concrete path are on that property. But really listen to Marcia, and you'll realize this is about much more than a fence.
You want someone to take you seriously.
I do. I want somebody to just
Look at her car in the background. She got her car parked up on the fence, damaging it. It's crazy.
respect me. Take me serious and just give me a little respect. If you want to use something of mine, ask me. Don't take it.
In North
Well, he not using anything of hers. because it's his property. Her fence is actually on his property, and she just isn't cognizant of the fact that he could actually make her move that shit, which is probably what most people would have done. I got a story that's kind of analogous to this too, but we're gonna go over what should have been her argument here because I think she actually has a way where she could have avoided all of this and got the actual outcome that she wanted.
Nashville, Hannah McDonald, News Channel 5.
There is something called adverse possession, which
Yep. See, that's what we're gonna talk about. I ain't even watched the end
allows
of it.
someone to take care of land even if they don't technically own it. It can get a little confusing. So if you are trying to establish property rights or just need more information, you should talk to a real estate attorney. Other places that you could turn are to your local property.
All right, we don't need to talk to a real estate attorney to talk about adverse possession because hey, you got an attorney here who's gonna tell y'all what the hell adverse possession is. That was the very first thing that I thought about. But before I dive into adverse possession, I actually had a situation that was similar. Well, let me explain adverse possession first. It is actually what it's called. The word adverse, what it means? It means adversarial. It means contentious. It means without a person's consent. Possession, mean you hold it, you own it. So essentially, adverse possession is a way to obtain legal ownership of land that is not yours. So I know everybody like, and you can even do adverse possession against the government. Now, every state is different. I looked up in Tennessee to find out what the time period is. In Tennessee, in most states, well, I'm not gonna say most states. Well, most states that I'm aware of or I practice in, it's 7 years. If you have adverse possession of land for 7 year period, you can obtain legal title and ownership of that land. Now, if you're trying to adverse possess land from the government, the time is longer. Some states it may be 20 years from the government, some years it may be 15 years. Now, the question is, how do you use adverse possession? What should she have done? Okay, essentially, for adverse possession to be valid, it's a few things you have to have. You have to have actual possession. You have to have actual possession of the land, which she did. She had her fence line up. She was there for 30 years. She used that property as if it was hers. She was actually possessing it. That's satisfied. Next is hostile. Well, what the hell is hostile? It don't mean you take it by gunpoint, goon squad. What hostile means is you're using that land, you have that actual possession, and it's without the consent of the owner. So whoever was in the house previously, they didn't give consent for her to use that land. She was just using that land as if it was hers, and she had actual possession of that land. So you have actual possession. It has to be hostile. That means without the owner of the land's consent. It has to be open and notorious. Open and notorious just means that you're claiming your right to that land and you're not hiding it in secret. So, for example, if me and you had, we were neighbors, and it was it was a 3 foot patch of land that I was using, right? But I planned, oh, I'm gonna take this 3 foot patch of land to extend my yard by adverse possession. So I'm using the land. I actually using it. I got my kids riding their bike up and down the pathway. It's without your consent, but every time you come home, I'm like, kids, get off of their property, move over here so they don't see us. Or I got my grill on the property, but when you come home, I'm moving. Well, then it wouldn't be open. So you have to have actual possession. It has to be without the owners of the property's consent. It has to be open. You has to be openly using the land. You can't use it when they're not looking. And then when they look, you like, oh, I'm not using it. So all of those are met. She actually had it. It was without the person's consent. It was open and notorious. And C, it has to be continuous. It has to be continuous. In Tennessee, it's for a 7 year period. Think about it. This lady lived in this house for 30 years. She met all of the requirements to have that land by adverse possession. Because initially, when I watched this, my first thought was, why the hell would a developer build a house where it's that close to the fence line? Then, as I watched it and I learned how long she was there and the story kind of developed, I said, the developer was trying to beat her to the punch because she could have actually used adverse possession to have legal ownership of that land. Even though it's on Rick's property, Rick purchased that property relatively recently. This lady was there for 30 years. She only needed to use that strip of land as if it was hers for a 7-year period, which she did. She actually used it. It was without the owner's consent. She used it openly and it was continuous for 7 years. So that lady actually had legal right to obtain that land. But what's the issue here? Well, the issue is she went to the news to complain about it because, and I don't know, maybe she had the resources to talk with somebody about it. But the very first thing she should have did was contact an attorney so they could have explained that to her. So the developer actually, I mean, he used a little bit of gamemanship. He knew how long that lady was there. She was in the property for 30 years. He said, I'm gonna build this damn house up. I don't care if the house is pushing all up against this fence that's on my property, but technically it should be her property because she adversely possessed the land for 7 years continuously and uninterrupted. So he built that house fast as shit. So now that he built that house, if she tried to go get an adverse possession claim to claim the rights to that strip of land that that house is on, it's going to be problematic because I just don't see a court what they're gonna do? Order him to take down the house? No. The resolution has to be fair and equitable. So the most likely scenario would be if she tried to assert her claim for adverse possession, she would likely be successful, but she can't force him to move the home. It would probably be a situation where it would have to be a forced sale of that thin parcel of land to Rick so Rick can get that goddamn fence up off the gutter. What's going on? I appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you tuning in. I know it's been a minute since your boy been on. My side neighbor's dogs are domestic poop terrorists. So we installed a fence. They had the nerve to play me talking it was on their land. I was like, the last survey says otherwise. Now move along, shit. And like, hey, those surveys get done and it could be a pain. I remember I got my house in 2018 and it was only 3 houses on my side of the street. I'm in the middle, a neighbor to the right, a neighbor to the left. The neighbor to the left had a big ass yard. I mean, this was a yard on some. This yard was crazy for a yard in the city. This was a big ass yard. Like I already thought in my mind, and I know the lady who owned it had passed away and left it to her son, and he had mental health issues. Because I was trying to actually buy a quadrant of that land so I could make my damn yard bigger. But I got outbid. A contractor came in and bought not the house, but bought the land. That's how big their yard was. It was a house here, my house in the middle, my neighbor's house. This house right here had so much land. A contractor just bought some of the land in the yard and built 2 houses on that land. Now, this is where it gets interesting because when they actually did the survey, my fence was actually in their property, on their property by probably about a foot and a half. And so, uh, I couldn't damn, I essentially couldn't do anything about it because I had just purchased the property. So I didn't meet that 7-year period to actually use the property to adverse possess it. So we just had to kind of splice it down the middle. It was only like a foot and a half, so it ain't killed me or nothing. It wasn't really that big of a deal. But I have had a situation like this. And where this really comes into play is when you have land or property that is out of state. I have some acres of just straight up land with nothing on it except a waterfall and the foundation to an old house that like burnt down back in the day. And that's one of the things that I gotta watch for. I gotta actually pay somebody to go down there just to make sure nobody living on the damn property or using it like it's theirs. Because if they do, there's a few ways that black folks lose their land. They never pay the taxes on it, or if it's in another state, they pay the taxes, but they don't go down there and check on it, and someone just uses the land and occupies it as their own. and the next thing you know, it becomes theirs legally. So that's something you definitely got to check on. Um, I don't think this is a gentrification horror story. I think the horror story behind that video is essentially that this lady actually had a legal right to claim that land. And because she didn't have, maybe the resources, or she didn't, just know that that was a legal option for her. Developer already put the house up. So now the best case she can do is go to court, successful on the adverse possession claim, force a sale of that strip of land to the developer for X amount of dollars and get some money. But she should have got the hell out of there earlier, sooner as opposed to later, in my book. Oh man, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Hey, the pay upgrade was much warranted. You know what I mean? Uh, I guess I go ahead and talk about that a little bit since I'm on, because I ain't gonna make this video too long. But I've been MIA for a few weeks, and I ain't really put out no content because I started a new job. Now this job is interesting because your boy got to go to work in the office 4 times a week. I'm like, what? That's kind of a shock for somebody who was damn near working at home almost 100% for what, 3 years? Yeah, for 3 years. And so got to go to work every week, but it's not bad. It's not too far. Maybe a 15-20 minute drive. Don't got to pay for parking. And the work is actually interesting work. So far, knock on wood, everything is dope. It's work that I enjoy. I've never had a job since I've been practicing law that I didn't enjoy. Now, you're going to have some people you might not enjoy, but I never had a job with a work I didn't enjoy. The work is actually interesting. And, it's not really a new area, but it's not an area that I would call my expertise. But, hey, I like diving in and finding out all the nuances. So I'll be significantly up to speed and feel relatively comfortable relatively fast, because even if I don't know the answer, I know how to find the answer. Between the period of losing my job, having a temporary job, then finding this job, I mentioned in other videos it was like a 50% pay cut. So like, it's gonna be interesting to see, when that first paycheck hit, my bank account gonna be like, whoo, uh, whoo, oh man, we missed it. But I don't really got no plans to do anything extravagant or anything extra. Um, I'm grateful. It's the highest amount of salary that I've ever made. That's kind of the norm when you're in most fields, especially professional fields. Your salary is just going to increase most times. Your next salary is based on your current salary. So that's kind of how it works. Even though I had that 50% pay cut, nobody kind of held that against me. They really look at like, what was your last real job? And we'll base your salary off of those numbers. So that's kind of how that played out. As for the plan moving forward, this month nothing special really gonna happen, because it's just a stabilization period. I gotta really see how all the numbers play out, see how the budget look, um, and so forth. The only thing that I know that I'm gonna do uh, outside of that is reduce investments to 5%, just enough to get the employer match. Because the focus is I want to get rid of the last remaining 32,000 of student loan. I'm gonna contribute money to my son's college fund at a relatively high rate, because that's right around the corner. This dude, he gonna be leaving soon. My daughter, hers is gonna stay the same because she's young, and we've been doing hers a lot longer than we've been contributing to his. That's why he gets way more contribution. And then every 2 weeks, every pay period, we're going to save $385. $385. If you save it every pay period, 26 pay periods in the year, that's $10,000 at the end of the year. So that's really all we got planned. I ain't gonna do anything too fancy. I just want to kind of see how the numbers going to shake out, so I could get an idea of how much I'll be able to pay towards my student loan. I'm thinking somewhere between $3,000 to $4,000 a month I should be able to pay on it. more or less, somewhere around that ballpark. But it just depends. It just kind of depends how things come up. Senior fees, senior trip. My daughter may have some dance thing that comes up that costs an arm and a leg. So, but the goal is to do somewhere between $3,000 to $4,000 a month to knock that out. Because mine is the only one that's the issue. My wife's $130,000. She actually just met all of the qualifications to get her student loans forgiven. So those are in the process of being forgiven. So that's kind of where that whole finance situation is right now. Right now it's just looking at the budget because I'll tell y'all right now, I stopped budgeting for 6 months. I didn't stop budgeting, I just wasn't tracking it. Like I don't know, like a 50% pay cut, I made just enough money to pay everything. Just enough money to pay everything. And sometimes I would pinch off of the emergency fund for some of the extras because I didn't need the extras to pay bills because I don't really got bills outside of a mortgage, and the student loan payment. It was just when those other things came up, like things related to my son's graduation, college tours, those were the things where I would punch money off of the emergency fund. The emergency fund was actually over where it normally would be because I already knew that the job thing was going to end and I was going to need that buffer. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. Now, interesting enough, though, uh, my supervisor at this current job is interesting, right? Like, uh military, which is good. So when I use all my military lingo, they know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. Okay. And is it 385? Oh, see? I see, there you go. See, it's actually a little bit higher. 26 weeks, 12. I don't know. I thought it broke down to 384 or something like that. I don't know. I ain't gonna check, but I trust your math. I ain't no mathematician. But my supervisor is really cool. Army. This is the crazy part. Y'all won't believe this, okay? It's one thing to have like one random one-off thing in common with a supervisor, but military, but my supervisor is at one point was a finance content creator. I'm talking about wrote books about going to school debt free, did an interview on the Bigger Pockets podcast, know people from the FinCon community who I know. Small, small, small world. So that's dope that, we kind of on the same page. We had these conversations just about money and finances in general and military stuff. So I was like, oh, that's kind of dope that, we do have that in common. So that's always a plus. But yeah, definitely a dope job that I'm enjoying so far. I don't think it's going to be any issues. And this is crazy. This is week number 3. And as of yesterday, they actually put me in charge of something. And I was like, damn, yeah. Like, I wasn't going to say no, but damn, I was like, can I at least get my first paycheck before y'all ask me to do some extra shit? But it's all good. I take that as a compliment. I'm very meticulous as an attorney. I may be a little bit disorganized on this YouTube game, but when it comes to like work, I'm very meticulous and methodical and overly detailed oriented. And and I need to know a process. I'm a process person. If I'm making widgets, I need to know where the hell does this widget come from before it gets to me and what I got to do with it. And I also need to know where the hell does this widget go after I've done my job. Because if you don't know the process that something goes through before it get to you, how the hell can you rate improvement? So I'm a big process guy and I'm very detail oriented, meticulous, and a little bit arrogant about my work product. So yeah, as most people said when I told them about it, it was only a matter of time. And I'm definitely looking forward because I see where I could provide some value and help make their process a little bit easier. It's going to be painful on the front end. Oh man, they're going to hate me. Those attorneys are going to hate my ass initially. But once we get everything done in a 3 to 6 month period, the work is going to be so easy because now that I know the process, hey, this is the kind of case flow, we can compile a policy that we can give to the people who look at the shit before it get to us. So if the people who look at a work product before it gets to you have a blueprint of how it should be done, by the time that work product gets to you, you shouldn't have to do a meticulous review because they use your policy to show you how it should be done. It should just be check, 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 check. They followed these steps. It's a done deal. Let's get it the hell out of here. So in the long run, it's going to be smoother, but for the next 6 months, it's probably going to be painful as hell. But that's definitely dope. Yeah, but yeah, that's the math. See, I must have jacked it up, but yeah, 385 every 2 weeks is what I'm stashing away. I think I'm gonna do like 500 a month for my son's college fund. Um, and that should put me in a position to hit that 3,000 to 4,000. It's probably gonna be somewhere between 32, 3,500 is what I'm thinking. But hey, it'll allow me to pay it off and knock it out fast. And once it gets low to about $10,000, I may just take whatever's in the emergency fund and just throw it at it just to kind of zero that out. Because I don't know, man. I want to get rid of that shit. I want the only bill I have to be a mortgage. And I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna be excited to pay that off. I ain't gonna be in a rush to pay off no mortgage that's a 2.25% because it's so low. I got another video about mortgage rates here in DC. I mean, rent rates here in DC, and my mortgage is $2,200 and some change. Man, I feel like I'm getting over. It's crazy. Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. Definitely, definitely. But yo, that's it for this video. Y'all let me know what y'all think about the sister and they built that house in Sandwich and like that. That's jacked up. It was a football stadium that was built like that too. I think it might have been the football stadium in Detroit. They paid all of this money to have these people move, and this one lady didn't want to move. So they just built the damn shit around her. Eventually, she couldn't take it no more. She moved, and now that is like an empty parking lot or something that they use. But yeah, when gentrification comes along, generally it's a good thing if you have resources. If you don't have resources and you're one of the people who are going to get pushed out, it could be problematic. Do not be the last person to negotiate the sale of your house. You want to negotiate while you have the most leverage. That lady, the last person standing, and unfortunately, she probably gonna be stuck there for the next 30 damn years in between that big ass house sandwich and shit. So that's just kind of what it is. Let's see. Property taxes. Property taxes is kind of interesting because there's really no way or nothing you can do to lower property taxes or do anything on your residential property. On your residential property is really nothing that you can do. You're kind of at the whim of what the city council wants to do. And that's a spike bill story. That's what it's called. Spike bill. That makes sense. Yeah, but you're kind of at the whim of what the county wants to do. Now, when it comes to rental property or land, you can do a lot to lower those property taxes. I have a house in South Carolina that the property taxes was high as hell. And I was like, why? I was like, yo, why these property taxes so high? Property taxes was high as hell. My father stayed there and the house paid for. There's no mortgage on it. But the reason the property taxes was high because it's classified as a rental property. So I was like, I'm not renting it out. I'm not charging my father nothing to stay there. He stayed there for free. So once I figured out why the damn taxes were so high, I actually had that property classified as a second home primary residence. In order for it to qualify, I just have to be there a certain amount of time a year, which is easy to do because I'm down there because I gotta go check out my pops. Doing that lowered the taxes like 90%. I went from paying like $1,500 a year to like 150, 170, less than $200 a year on the property taxes. With the land is the same way. The land tax is cheap unless I classify the land as something else. If I really wanted to save money, I would probably like build a pen and put some goats on the land because goats could just eat anything. I wouldn't even have to get out there and feed them and get it classified as farmland if I really wanted to save money. But it wouldn't be worth the hassle to do that. It wouldn't be worth the hassle to do that. But that's a way you can kind of navigate that to make that a little bit cheaper. I think what I'm gonna end up doing with that land, I was actually me and my pops was having this conversation. Um, because we got I got three pieces of land. One is already connected, like I can get city water and everything installed right there. I think I'm gonna buy one of those. We were looking like on Amazon. You can get those makeshift homes. You know what I mean? You get those makeshift homes that they'll deliver and build and insulate and do all of that stuff right then and there, and hook up the solar panels, electricity, and do all of that stuff. So I'm thinking about putting one of those homes on one. And I saw price ranges from $8,000, $20,000. I saw another one that was like $39,000. That was for a big ass one. But I think that'll be an interesting thing to do. It's a real rural ass area, but if I could spend $20,000, I already got the land. If I could spend $20,000 to have this home delivered and installed, another $1,000 to hook up the city water and utilities and everything, and make $700 to $900 a month, just for nothing. I mean, that'll be a good thing to do. That's one of my thought processes, but again, it's just a pain in the ass. Like maybe if my pops was like in his early 60s, but man, my father just turned 74. And like, yeah, this plot of land, he could stand on his front porch and he would be able to see the house. But like, yeah, one, I don't want my father to feel like he obligated to have to look over it to make sure nobody fucking up the house. And two, if somebody is jacking up the house, I know my father. Like, hey, this dude caught a gun charge at 70 because somebody was on his property and he came out there and shot his rifle to get him off his land. Now he beat that charge because he was in the right, but like, nah, I feel like that's too much of a burden. I wouldn't even ask my father to do it, but because he's so close, he would feel obligated to do it. And I really don't want to have him have to go through that personally. Yeah, that's probably the best thing you can do to circumvent your taxes is, that homestead tax deduction that most places will give you. I know they have it in DC. They have it. Most states probably have that tax benefit where it'll reduce your tax burden for your primary residence. But that's really it. The only taxes you can really get fancy with to reduce are your income taxes. Your income taxes you can have business losses to offset. You can have losses in your business, which will offset some of the taxes you may owe from a personal standpoint. That's kind of normally how I do it. Some of my business losses, because like, hey, this YouTube thing of business, but your boy ain't over here making no lead attorney money. I ain't over here making lead attorney money. So, at the end of the year, I was like, man, I need some write-offs. So at the end of the year, I bought some new equipment. I like, let me get an upgrade camera. Let me get an upgraded monitor, this big ass monitor I got here. Let me get some upgraded lights and do some things like that because I know I'll be able to use those, expenses to kind of offset some of the, taxes I'm gonna have on the income side of the game. But yeah, it's that those really the only taxes you could finesse unless you just like Donald Trump or somebody and you could just get creative, like, hey, my wife passed away and I bury her in the backyard and say this is funeral home. But yeah, that's a little creepy. I don't want her ghost haunting me and shit either. Yeah. What made me want to go into law? I think it was just spoken up on me at a very young age. My mother, God bless her, Mama DFD. Uh, my whole family on my mom's side is obviously my mother's side was the churchgoers. My father's side was the street goers. But my mom's always was in church, and she's been telling me since I can remember that she had a dream that I was going to be an attorney. I was going to be an attorney. So it was always kind of in the back of my mind. I think I knew one attorney growing up. It was a guy who went to like my mom's church, and he was cool. His name was Anthony, and I didn't know much about him. I just knew he had the flyest cars ever, and I was like, I don't know what he do, but that's what I want to do. And so as I got older, I went to school graduated, went to school for 2 years. I didn't want to get bogged down for a bunch of loans, especially not for undergrad. Graduate school, that's different depending on what you're going for. But went to the military for 4 years, and then January, February, I don't know, whatever it was in 2003 when the Iraq War kicked off. When we first went from Kuwait to Iraq, there was a rumor going around that Saddam Hussein's chemical guy, who they called Chemical Ali. I don't even think that was his name. I think that was some name we just gave him. But it was a rumor going around that his chemical guy had the entire city of Baghdad rigged with sarin gas. So essentially what that meant was anytime you heard an explosion, you didn't know if it was chemical or not. So you had to put on this whole rubber outfit, the gas mask, and everything every time you hear a loud ass explosion. So you got this hot ass stuff on. It's already 120 degrees in the desert, and every time explosion go off, you got to put on all of this shit. And I remember sitting in the bunker one day in this hot ass weather with this equipment on. They were shooting at us, and I was like, man, you know what? I was like, man, fuck this. I think I need to see what's up with school. So I got out of the military, went back, finished undergrad, and my original major was computer science, but I was getting like C's and D's. So I asked my homeboy who plays sports. I was like, "Man, what you majoring in?" He was like, "I'm majoring in criminal justice." I was like, "All right, I'm doing that shit." So I was getting all A's, but the professors was mad honest. They told me as soon as I switched my major, they was like, "Hey, if you want to make money with a criminal justice degree, you got to go to law school. Like, if you want to have a career where, like, okay, you don't really got to, it gives you an opportunity to really be able to provide for your family, you need to get a law degree on top of this or go full blown PhD and become a professor." And I ain't trying to teach nobody nothing. I barely knew shit. So I wasn't trying to teach nobody nothing. So, and I had another professor who he went to, what is the first HBCU? Oh man, the name escapes me. He was very proud of that HBCU though. Lincoln. He went to Lincoln University, and he was a lawyer. He only taught like maybe one or two courses, just like once a week or something like that. But there was a couple guys who were honest about stuff, and so I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna try to get into law school." Took all the tests, and I was fortunate enough to barely get in. But that's what it was. It was just something that I kind of liked, the criminal law stuff, the investigation stuff. It was kind of interesting. It always kept my attention. Unlike computer science, I would have went crazy sitting at a computer looking at ones and zeros doing C++ all damn day. So it was a matter of, it was an area that interests me, and plus I just like the fact that it was diverse. I was like, if I do criminal law and I hate doing it, I could just pivot and do family law, or I could pivot and say I want to learn about tax, or I could pivot. Like, it's very few degrees that you get that'll give you an option at any point in your career to absolutely just change it and do something else. Like, think about it. I went from being a trial attorney to being a attorney who leads investigations, doing some prosecution work, doing some educational law stuff, doing Freedom of Information Act, all these different areas of law of things that I had no clue even existed, but it gave me some room to pivot and develop a unique skill set. So that's kind of what made me decide to go to law school. It really wasn't a money grab or nothing like that. Part of it was, but because I already knew I wasn't that good in basketball. I was all right, but I ain't had a height, and I ain't had a game either. But it was, I want to be a rapper. My hoop dreams fell off, and so I was like, well, what is the next thing that I could do that I would be actually interested in? And the law was it. Especially when you grow up around a bunch of street guys. It's just something like, oh man, I could do this and help a lot of people, and that's what it's about. I enjoy helping people, even if it's not a criminal law thing. Just simple advice like, I'm not a real estate attorney, but I can explain to someone what adverse possession is. and explain to him like, yo, you may want to talk to somebody because you may actually legally have the rights to that property. You know, you can know a little bit about most things to where you can really help the average person. And I always find that as being dope in my book. Have you seen? Yeah, man. That's my show. I remember when I was a young defense attorney. Actually, somebody told me a good story today. It beat any attorney story I had. But I remember I was representing this dude. I don't know. He probably had a drug charge or a gun charge. That's kind of what the drug dealers would get. But he was from New York and he moved down south. And I remember, I can't remember whatever outcome we got on this case was favorable. And I remember he came to me and was like, hey, I can't remember the name of his crew or his set. And even if I did, I probably would mention it. But he was like, yo, me and the crew was talking about having a lawyer on a retainer so we could just have somebody to call. And you in our top three. I was like, oh, I'm flattered. I was like, oh, I'm flattered. But I was like, nah, bro, I'm good on that. But I haven't had any real. I saw Better Call Saul is interesting. And an attorney today, a new guy started at my job, and I told him, I said, I appreciate you starting because now I'm not the newest attorney here. And we were trading war stories. And he told me a story of he was doing criminal defense, but he was maybe in his second year. And their client was someone who stayed in Mexico. So they get flown out. They're like, hey, you handle this. He flies out to Mexico to meet this client, criminal case to talk about. They meet in a restaurant. This story was great. They meet in a restaurant. Some guys come up to him because this guy spoke Spanish, but it was kind of broken Spanish, you know what I mean? The guys come up to him speaking Espanol, and they ask, are you attorney such and such? He's like, yeah, that's me. I'm here to meet XYZ, whatever the guy's name, El Jefe, whatever the guy's name was. I'm here to meet El Jefe. They was like, okay, cool. But in order for you to meet him and talk to him, you need to put this on your head. And they gave him a black bag. They wanted him to put a they wanted to put a bag on his head so they could transport him to see El Jefe. Now, luckily for him, he was smart enough not to do it because that dude probably would have been on the side of the road somewhere with no damn passport. But Better Call Saul is that far from what actually happens to some lawyers who are out there. I had another partner who was I definitely do that. I had another homeboy of mine's. I was doing criminal defense and prosecution for maybe 5 to 7 years. And he had just transitioned to criminal defense and he was out on the West Coast, right? And I had to explain this to him. He hit me up to get some guidance on the case. And he said he was representing guys who had a serious charge. It was something crazy like trafficking guns, right? That's a serious ass charge, right? And I was like, okay, cool. You can represent whoever you want. One of the running questions in law school is if a guy comes in your office wanting you to represent him and he got a bag full of money and he got a little cocaine residue on it, are you going to represent him? The correct answer is hell yes. Okay. And so my homeboy telling me he representing these guys is a gun smuggling thing and all of these charges. So we kind of talking about the facts and he giving me the information and I'm like, okay, you may have a avenue here. We going over all the strategy. A couple of weeks later, he called me and said, yo, they want to meet with me, but not at my office. And I'm like, okay, well, where they want to meet with you at? He's like, at a club. And he was like, and they offered me a car. And I was like, a car for what? Because, his car, I think, had issues and they offered like, oh, no, we'll get you a car. That wasn't like a car. It was like a Mercedes S500, maybe 2 or 3 years old. And so I had to have a real conversation with him. I said, look, you can represent anybody you want as an attorney. Even if they're alleged to be do something notorious, you can represent them. The only thing you have to do is make sure you keep the balance between and don't cross that line between being a professional and becoming one of their fucking friends or one of their associates. I said, I've seen a lot of mob movies. I don't know nobody. Now, I don't know nobody who was in the mob. I had to think about it. I don't know anybody who was in the mob. but I've seen a lot of mob movies. In every mob movie I saw, when that attorney crosses the line from being the attorney who meets in his office only to the guy who's at the club and engaging in yacht party shit with him, the attorneys can get it just like everybody else. So, Better Call Saul, a lot of people see that show and think, man, it can't really be like this. Nah, sometimes in the right facts and circumstances, that can really be like that. It's really stories out there like that. Yeah. It's really stories out there like that. So you always gotta keep your head on the swivel. But nah, I'm not a Saul type of guy, man. I've got my ethical barometer is too high. And I already know, like, the minute I get caught, the minute I do something wrong, I'm gonna get caught. It's just inevitable. I like, no, they gonna make an example out of me, and I'm like, no, let's make an example out of this guy. And I don't want to be the guy to get made examples of. But it's stories. I knew an attorney who he might still be in federal prison, but he ended up being a broker between like the drug dealers, the drug sellers, and the dealers because he just was in those circles just from his area of practice. And of course, it didn't end well because, like I said, he in federal prison. But yeah, there's a lot of stories out there, attorneys who, they want to do their attorney thing and street thing, and they end up getting caught up. Like, I ain't got the time, man. I don't want to work that hard. I can't rationalize working that hard for something, even if it's illegal, just to have somebody take it away instantaneously. And you got to worry about everybody. You got to worry about the jackers. You got to worry about your rivals. You got to worry about law enforcement. Man, that's too much stuff to worry about. Yeah, that's too much shit to worry about. You can't ever rest and enjoy anything. I ain't got the time or the patience for it. Like, nah, that's just kind of not how I'm built like that. Your boy is a square. I'm a L7 or whatever they call it, just a law-abiding citizen if I see a crime, I'm snitching, I'm telling because I'm a law-abiding working stiff, okay? As the guys in the mob say, I'm a working stiff and I'm happy to be such. Yo, that's it for this video. I'm gonna probably have to cut that out as a clip, but that's it for this video. As always, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I may jump on tomorrow because we got to talk a little bit about I had an argument with somebody about if buying a home is asset, is your home an asset? And now I'm 100% positive that if you buy a home, it's an asset because I got a story that's close to home because it's about a lawsuit that's happening in DC over rent prices. And this is something that I saw coming probably over a year ago. And I knew I saw it coming because I did a video on it over a year ago. And now there's litigation in the nation's capital right in my own backyard. So it's going to be interesting to talk about. Yo, that's it. Y'all take care. Be blessed. Be safe out here. Peace. Thanks again for everybody who tuned in too.